In this video, we're going to take a look at function input and output, function parameters, and function return, what the book calls fruitful functions, functions that result in some kind of fruit, some kind of value. So you can see at the top here, I have a function defined, define a function called calc. That function takes in three things. Python doesn't really, in a function definition, you don't specify what the data type of these are. So these are just three things. We don't know what the data type is. And then once I get those three things, I can do things with them. And so I have these three elements, num1, num2, and num3. And then I'm going to calculate num1 plus num2 times num3, store that in a result. And then this is the fruit right here. We're going to return result, which means we are going to give an answer for the calculation we did. Functions don't have to perform calculations, but this is the easiest way to think about it is give it some data to perform a calculation. Those are your parameters. It's going to perform a calculation, and that's going to return the result. In order for this to work, we need to use it. We need to call the function. So I've written a little program, a main program here that prompts the user with what's going to happen. This will calculate a plus b times c, prompts them for their entry for a, converts it to an int, stores it in a variable called a. Similarly for b and c, once we have all three variables input, now we have on line 17, we have what is our function call. We're going to call calc with the input a, b, and c. When that calc is finished running, it's going to return a result. You can think of this being just replaced with that result. That result is being stored in the variable results, and then we are printing the value of results. So let's run it, and then I want to kind of go through the code a little bit more. So if we run, it'll ask us for a, b, and c. So I'm just going to give it 2, 3, and 4. And 14 is the correct answer because 4 times 3 is 12, plus 2 more is 14. That is our function. But let's look a little bit at the program flow here and how the parameters and return values kind of shift around. So I'm going to annotate this screen a bit here for you. We're going to mark some what are called stack frames. So each bit of code we run has to run in some kind of space, some kind of area. And the default, this where all of this one is right here, this is called global. And every other function has its own space. So we have the global space, and then we have calcs space. I'm just going to draw this a little cleaner. We have our global space, and then we have calcs space. And these two things, they don't really know anything about each other. These are essentially separate areas. And these two separate areas, they only have one way to communicate really, and that's through this input and output, through input parameters and returning results. But we'll get to that. So we start our program in this global space right at main. We print something to the screen. In order to run this, we actually create a variable called a in this global space. It has some value from the user. We create a variable b in this global space. It has some value for a user. We create this variable c in this global space. It has some value. I'm gonna run out of room. Just write this smaller. All right. Global. And then in global, we have A, B, C. We got those values from a user. So 2, 3, and 4 is what we did in the last one. And then we have this value result. This variable result. And result, we don't know the value for until we go figure out this calc. So we call the calc function. Our program moves its flow up to the function. Calc has its own space. It has three variables, num1, num2, and num3 as input parameters. And we'll get in a second where those values come from. And then we also have this result variable, this res variable. Whatever is inside that first parameter, that's what goes in num1. Whatever's in the next parameter, that's what goes in num2. Whatever's in the next, that goes in num3. Oop. So A has 2, so we put a number 2 over here. B has 3, put a number 3 over here. C has 4, we put a number 4 over here. We can calculate this and put the result in 14. Now, these numbers over in global and these numbers over in calc, they don't have anything to do with each other. You know, the number 2, num2 being value 3 has nothing to do with B being value 3. If we change the value of 3, we don't change the value of num2. If we change the value of num2, we don't change the value of B. They copy the values over. We can use the num variables inside the function. We can use the other variables inside the global space. We can access global variables from a function, but we're not going to talk about that right now. So we have num1, num2, num3. We've calculated our answer. Our answer is a result. We need to get this answer out of this function. This answer is in this function, and we need to get it out of this function and back to main. So we return the result, which means that basically this just gets replaced with the number 14, and result equals 14. Well, that's gonna fill in our little block over here. And then lastly, we're gonna print the result. So we'll print 14. I actually think there is a nice website that can run you through some of this if you have trouble figuring out the flow of the code. And it's called Python Tutor. If I can get my mouse to work as a mouse instead of as a pen. All right. Clear my screen. No, it is just Python Tutor. Here it is, pythontutor.com. So pythontutor.com, and you can actually use this to visualize all kinds of code, but it obviously started with visualizing Python. So what you would do is you hit start visualizing your code now, and you can write code in this little window, and then you get to watch the code run. So I'm just going to copy and paste this code we wrote over here. And we can step through this program. So I'm going to say visualize execution. And next is the key button here. So it's going to jump to the next, and you can see it created this global frame with a value calc that is a function. And then we hit next, and we're going to create this variable A in, oh, we need some input, sorry, 2. And here's our variable A that we created in the global frame. And then similarly, we need to put in some data for B and for C. And you can see that just like I had drawn, we have these variables inside the stack frame here and the global frame. And now we're going to calculate result, but we can't calculate result until after we figure out this function. So you can see a new space is created here with num1, num2, and num3. It got all its values copied over from the ones in the parameter list. It's going to create this variable result. Result is equal to 14. It's going to return that value from calc and pop it into the result variable in the global frame. Of course, we could then print that, which we've done up here already, and we're done. If you're curious about trying out this program, pythontutor.com, pythontutor.com. I think that does it for this one. Hope it was helpful.